everybody. Welcome back to Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs. With me, back in her media room, or whatever we should call this, her screening room.
This is my music room.
Their music room, okay.
Yes.
All right. Even though it has the nice big television behind her.
We installed the big television so we could watch concert videos, specifically.
Yeah.
So.
Right. But of course, I'm joined once again by Zan Sprouse.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Ready to talk some Blue Velvet? Because that's what we're going to talk about today.
We are ready to talk some Blue Velvet.
I'm presuming you are, since you have it on the video screen.
Yes, I have it running in the background so we make sure we don't forget any of the wonderful David Lynch imagery.
Do we have a video? Yes, we've got a video.
Yes, we've got a video.
I don't know why Vivian from The Young Ones just came in my head, but it did. Random things just pop. In case you hadn't figured it out, random things just pop into my head for no good reason.
Well, mine too. I understand that completely. You want to come to bed, Vivian? No, I think I'm going to stay up and watch The Dot some more. Wish we had a video so I could watch it in the morning.
All right, we were watch out because that's like a rabbit hole we could go down with Young Ones quotes.
Oh, that's true. But Young Ones is extremely finite, so it wouldn't take us long.
That's true. It's only 2 seasons, but
yes, that's right.
All right. So yes, we're going to talk about Blue Velvet today here in episode 32. Which is, of course, the 1986 neo-noir mystery film written and directed by David Lynch. So, and this was, as pretty much most Twin Peaks fans probably know, this was the kind of prototype for Twin Peaks, this movie.
Very, very much the prototype for Twin Peaks. Even in the most general way, small town where seedy things are going on.
Right.
So, and there's even, when you really get down, and that's what we're going to do today, is really get down into Blue Velvet. There's a lot of different imagery. There's a lot of different themes that are similar. The soundtrack is Angelo Badalamenti again.
Right.
So there's this, I believe this, and I think Twin Peaks is about 80% this, maybe 20% Wild at Heart came from a lot of this stuff.
But did Wild at Heart come after?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, not after Twin Peaks. Not after Twin Peaks.
Oh.
I want to say Wild at Heart was 1988.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I thought for some reason I was thinking it was like 93, but all right. You're right.
I know.
I'm pretty sure you're right then. Okay.
I'm sorry. It was 1990. It was 1990, so it was around
the same time. Yeah, I think I remember, if I remember this correctly, they shot the pilot for Twin Peaks, and then while they were waiting to see if it was going to get picked up by ABC, he shot Wild at Heart.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's right. All right.
So.
Okay.
And I think up to this point in David Lynch's career, Blue Velvet is probably his most mainstream, widely seen project that is also very David Lynch. I think the thing that is the most well known of his that everybody knows, and I think a lot of people are often surprised when they hear this,
right,
was David Lynch directed The Elephant Man and was actually nominated for an Oscar for that. And I think that's something everybody saw and everybody knows that story, John Merrick's story. And then, of course, Dune was, a big budget popcorn movie, but it was not very well received. So I think a lot of people...
It wasn't necessarily a mainstream movie. Not
necessarily a mainstream movie because sci-fi back in the day was not an everybody goes see it thing. It's not like comic book movies these days where that's what everybody does. Sci-fi was still kind of a niche market for people, and especially sci-fi movies that are really long and don't particularly get very good reception aren't necessarily considered mainstream. So I think at this point, this was David Lynch's most mainstream movie at the time.
Most widely accepted movie.
Definitely most widely accepted movie. It was another one that he was nominated for an Oscar.
Right. He got a Best Director nom for that one, too.
Best Director nomination. And it is also the comeback of Dennis Hopper. Because everybody sort of knew Dennis Hopper as this 60s.
Yeah, the guy from Easy Rider. Yeah.
Right. The guy from Easy Rider. The guy from Why can't I think of names of movies right now? Apocalypse Now. From
Okay.
Apocalypse Now. So very much a 60s counterculture icon, and we hadn't seen a lot of him because he was basically, kind of in rehab for a lot of the years of the 80s. He had been a terrible drug addict
Right.
and had gotten cleaner, and this was sort of a comeback for him. And what an amazing what an
Yeah.
amazing job. This is you really can't talk about.
You're kind of surprised that he didn't get a nomination for this.
I was actually very shocked, and I think it's probably because is there a clip you could have played at the Oscars on
Right.
network television
That's true.
with Dennis Hopper in it?
Maybe where he goes, well, that's true. No, I'm trying to think of anything he says that doesn't have the F word in it.
There's not a lot,
You, you
frankly.
you show this maybe like a 2-second clip where he goes, Pabst Blue Ribbon, and that would be it.
That's it. That's about it. The line right before that,
Yeah.
again, F bomb.
Right.
So
Right.
um, there's there's a lot going on with him, but yeah, he's
Yeah.
an amazing performance in this, and I think the word of mouth about him definitely got not just the the 80s Tam Janowitz less than zero 80s hipster crowd into the art film scene to go see this movie, but I think it got the 60s generation seeing this movie as well. So I think you had a lot of
Oh,
word of
okay.
mouth about
It
this
was
is
more like a cross-generational
definitely
appeal.
a cross generational thing, right? Because it was so different. And there were some up and coming stars in this. I mean, there was Isabella Rossellini is in
Right.
it, and Laura Dern, who again is the daughter of kind of a 60s counterculture icon.
Right. She's Bruce Dern's daughter.
She's
Yeah.
Bruce Dern's daughter, yes.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, we had like 4 major Twin Peaks actors in this. We of course had
yes.
Kyle MacLachlan, who plays Jeffrey Beaumont.
What are you doing in my apartment, Jeffrey Beaumont?
Yeah, exactly.
So yes.
And Laura Dern, we talked about, she's Sandy Williams in this,
Hmm.
his love interest, or at least one of them. And then we have Frances Bay, who plays Aunt Barbara,
Yes. Who is Mrs. Chalfont?
Mrs. Tremond. Yes.
Mrs. Tremont and
Yeah.
isn't she alluded to be Mrs. Chalfont,
Right. Yeah.
the woman and her grandson?
Right.
Yeah, Mrs. Tremont / Chalfont.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, unfortunately, she died in 2011. But
Yes, so she was unable to come back for the return.
and
But
then of course we got Jack Nance, who plays Paul.
hmm
I'm Paul.
I'm Paul, and he's very, very Jack Nance in this. It's fantastic.
Yeah. But yeah, then some other notable cast members. Of course, we have Isabella Rossellini, which you talked about, playing Dorothy Vallens. Hope Lang, from Ghost and Mrs. Muir. Hope Lang.
That Hope Lang,
That
yes.
Hope Lang is Mrs. Williams,
Hmm.
and of course we have Dean Stockwell as Ben, who
Oh,
along
who is
with Kyle MacLachlan was in Dune. He played Dr. Yui.
Dr. Yui and Dune, yes, and of course, and then along the Dune lines, we
Right.
have Brad Dourif is
Right.
also in this movie.
Yeah, because he played Peter DeVry or DeVry.
Peter DeVries.
Yeah, DeVries. Yeah, he's a Mentat.
Yes, Peter
in that.
DeVries. Yeah, he was the Mentat. Yes,
Yeah.
it is by Will alone I set my mind in motion. He's that guy.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and he's also in this as big surprise, one of the No Goodnick gang that hangs around with Frank Booth.
Raymond. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Snake handler Raymond,
Hmm.
as we talk about.
Yeah.
We'll talk about. And then we had George Dickerson, who plays Detective Williams, John Williams. Now Priscilla Pointer, who played Mrs. Beaumont. I thought I'd recognized her from somewhere before, and turns out, yeah, I'm a big Flash fan. I should have recognized this right off the bat. She played Barry Allen's mother, Nora, in the Flash pilot from the 1990 television series, the original one with John Wesley Shipp.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So she's the original Nora Allen on TV from 1990.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah, I did not remember that.
yep. So I was just like, I knew she looked familiar, and I was like, oh, that's where I've seen her before. So
That makes sense.
yeah.
Okay.
And you talked about Angelo Badalamenti, so doing the score here,
Hmm.
and
And and again, you have some little bit of soundtrack
Yep.
crossover action with Blue Velvet. And we are in the music room, so let's
Yes.
come over here
Yes.
to the soundtrack section here.
Yes. Do you have the Blue Velvet soundtrack?
Well, of course I do.
Of course you do.
Yes, here's Blue Velvet right here.
Oh,
And then let's come down here.
yes.
And we're gonna,
I really should be doing like, um, like print screens of this. Although now she froze up. There's
print screen walking around my music room.
Yep, there you go.
All right, so here we have
Still shots.
Yes, here we have this right here,
Yep.
and our track number 14.
Track number what?
Blue Velvet,
You kind of like
Mysteries of Love.
Mysteries of Love.
Track
Yes,
number, track number 4.
by Julie Cruz.
Vocals by yes. So
Yes.
we start getting
Another.
into the whole Julie
Yep.
Angelo feel to things.
It's like we have these like building blocks, and then what's one of the things we'll talk about, because there were a lot of like just little things here and there that I think maybe either consciously or subconsciously David Lynch incorporated into Twin Peaks.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
just
probably
gonna say,
just sort of
I was
getting
just
ahead of
gonna say,
myself here.
well, I was just going to say he's probably, like with using Julie Cruz, is probably this kind of, he probably liked the ethereal sound, so that when he and Mark Frost came up with the idea for Twin Peaks, he probably thought, okay, she would be perfect for that. It was inspired for that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so he knows that feel of, and most of the feel I'm talking about when it comes to Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet is the small town, a Midwestern small town where everything on the outside looks perfect. Like in the opening scene of this movie, you have just shots of the fire department driving down the street waving,
Right.
and just kids in their yards playing. And then you have a man who's just outside of his, modest home, watering his garden. And then he, of course, has a heart attack.
Yeah.
And that is Jeffrey Beaumont's father.
Yeah, he has
and that's
a
what brings
stroke.
Jeffrey Beaumont back to town. Yes, he has a stroke.
It's just kind
And
of
that's
like,
what brings Jeffrey
and
back
he gets
to
his
town.
hose all tangled up, and then all of a sudden he keels over from a stroke while he's fighting with it. Yeah.
And then the dog is jumping up and down.
Then it gets a little like darkly comical, because here he is like lying down in the yard, the hose is kind of flailing around everywhere or whatever, and the dog is like biting at the stream of water coming out of the hose, going.
Like ducks they try to eat the water. They don't necessarily just lap it up. They're like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I noticed when right off the bat, after we open up with those blue velvet curtains, because again we have curtains because David Lynch loves curtains.
Blue velvet curtains, not red velvet curtains. Yeah,
exactly. And as we're hearing Bobby Vinton's version of Blue Velvet, no, he doesn't. He wasn't the original singer on Blue Velvet, but
no, he was.
But
not.
he did, of course, the most popular version.
Yes.
And that was from '63, by the way. But one of the things I noticed while this is opening up, there's an opening shot of a white picket fence. So what we have in that scene, I kind of noticed this. Okay, we had red roses, a white picket fence against a blue sky. So we had red, white, and blue, pure Americana.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm sure that was deliberate to have the same shot, because it was just a vivid blue sky. And so basically what he's trying to do here is obviously set the tone, like, okay, here we have like a town that could be anywhere in America.
Anywheresville, USA.
And now let's explore all the dark, grimy stuff underneath.
Yeah, I know exactly what this town is going to look like on 4th of July. Right. I know what they do. I know what the parades are going to look like. I know what this town is. We've all been to this town a million times.
Yeah, and it's called Lumberton.
Lumberton.
Yep. So So again, more like log industry.
Yeah, guess what their industry is?
Yep, exactly.
It's lumber, and there are scenes in this.
When you hear the sound of the chainsaw, it's 5 o'clock.
Time to turn the page, kid.
Yep.
So not only is it called Lumberton, and it's another town where lumber and wood
Yes.
logging are what keeps the economy going.
Right.
There are scenes where, when our characters, Jeffrey and Sandy, are going to the diner,
right,
you see a log truck drive by.
Yep.
So again, tons and tons of imagery.
It's very Double R Diner in Twin Peaks.
Very Double R Diner, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So we have our main character who comes to town. His name is Jeffrey Beaumont, and he comes to town because his father is the one that had the stroke.
Right.
And he has come home from college. Again, totally, kid goes off to college, comes home, and has to help run the family business when his father gets ill.
Right.
They have a hardware store. And so he's
Do they sell rubber gloves?
They totally should, where there's only just one in the package. They should totally do that. So he's home visiting his father, and he's this typical of what you would be when you'd be like a 22, 23-year-old male who is home from college because his father is ill.
Right.
He's sad about that. He's sad about having to leave college. He doesn't know what he's going to do. He doesn't know if this is what he wanted to do. I mean, he's apparently in college so he can not have to run the hardware store.
Right.
That he has some other avenues he wants to.
But he's not like angry about it though.
He's not angry. I just think it's a lot for him at one time.
Yeah.
Basically. So he's out walking through
because he's going over to the hospital.
Yeah, he goes to the hospital to visit his father.
So yeah, and then while he's cutting through there's a vacant lot, grassy lot.
Which, of course, everybody knows that's where all the kids would play pickup baseball, when there was back when kids played outside, like by themselves without, play dates.
Yeah.
That's what kids would do. They would play tag, they'd play hide and seek, and they'd be all over town.
And presumably no swirling vortexes.
God, I hope not.
In this vacant lot.
Yeah, I hope not. But
no, they had
he's doing the same stuff he probably did as he was a kid. He was just, throwing rocks at old wash tubs, things like that.
Kyle MacLachlan throwing rocks. Where have we seen that before?
Where have I seen that before? Where he's trying to knock things over with a rock.
With like a bottle, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Totally new.
Yep.
So
go figure.
And as he's going through this vacant lot, he goes to pick up a rock, but instead he finds a human ear.
Dun dun dun.
A severed human ear covered in ants.
Yep.
And it's a little bit moldy, so it's been there for a while.
Yep.
So he looks around for there's like a little paper bag.
Yeah, and it's pretty much like the perfect size for this ear. Like this is little tiny paper bag that's like ear sized. Okay.
And I'm thinking that this paper bag might very well have come from Beaumont's hardware store.
For all we know.
Because it's that size of paper bag that you would put like nails in.
Right.
When you're buying like 100 nails, it's that size of a paper bag.
Or screws or whatever. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So he takes it to the police station, and then they do an investigation. They rope things off, and now everybody knows that something's going down over here.
Yeah, that's where they meet Detective Williams,
which is Sandy, the Laura Dern character. That's her father.
Right. So they swing by the coroner, and who informs them that it was cut off by scissors. And
that whoever lost this ear is still alive.
Right. And how he knows that, I have no idea.
He's like, I think Albert would enjoy.
Maybe he just figures, you can't really die from an ear wound unless you bleed out completely. But
I think there's something with coagulation of blood in the blood vessels when you cut off an appendage from a dead body versus a live body.
Okay.
But I never got into forensic science
for
various reasons. So I could just be talking into the wind here, but I believe that's how they did it.
That's a good guess, I would say.
But I think this coroner is probably I think Albert would like him a little bit better. He seems to be a little more on the ball.
A little bit more on the ball. Don't go to Sam.
Well, and this guy looks like he's actually a coroner. He's not necessarily the doctor that also does autopsies, like the one town doctor that also does double duties as
Right.
coroner for autopsies, like
It's not that small of a town.
yeah, like Doc Hayward would have
Yeah,
been.
like Twin Peaks. Yeah.
So, right, exactly.
There's apparently the only doctor in town. Well,
Yeah, the
no, I
only
take that
doctor.
back. Well, I take that back. There was two. There was the doctor that examined Ronette,
Yes, that's right.
the female doctor.
Yes, I forget her name.
Yeah,
But
but she was the one that says, "Well, like this girl doesn't even know if she is."
if she is, yeah,
That
yeah,
doctor.
exactly. So
there's
I
like two
cannot.
doctors in town.
And there's Dr. Jacoby, who doesn't. He's not a doctor much longer.
Not
after
anymore. Yeah,
the
exactly.
1900s.
You're right.
So, I think so. This adds to Jeffrey's being very sort of jumping out of his skin, being back home. He's back home
Right.
in his parents' house, in his old bedroom. And I did not go away to college,
Yeah.
but I know that.
I did.
Did you?
I did.
So maybe you can speak to this, Charles, a little bit. That feeling of spending like 8 months out of the year being totally independent adults and then having to come back home to your childhood bedroom.
Right. Well, it was more like for me, like I was. I mean, I was there. I would come home on the weekends.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
but the rest of the time, 5 days a week. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm away from my life. I'm, having like either I was in a dorm room or an apartment. So yeah, I'm obviously away from the thing. So yeah, when you come home on the weekends, you're just like, well, this is like my old life.
Right. You're trying to build your own new life, and then you're coming back to this old life where you are essentially a child.
Yeah.
Still, even though you were probably 18 when you left, you're still essentially a child in the minds of these people. And he's there. His mother's there. Aunt Barbara's there to help take care of things.
Yep.
And
one thing I noticed that with them when he first goes home
and
they're there watching television, they're watching a program that they're basically watching TV shows that parallel events, just kind of like Invitation to Love.
Invitation to Love.
Yep.
Right.
Right. I thought that was interesting.
Again, we have the parallels that just keep on coming.
Pretty much. Like again, this is the prototype, people.
Yeah. So he decides to go out and just take a walk because I think he's probably just has no idea what to do with himself sitting around the house.
Right.
And Aunt Barbara says, "You're not going to go to Lincoln, are you?" And Lincoln is the wrong side of the tracks in this town.
Right.
And every town's got one. Every town's got that area, that street that you're not supposed to go to, and that has the probably has the bar you're not supposed to hang out at, or that's what.
So basically, it's all where all the cool stuff happens.
The 24th Street Gang.
Yeah, that's true.
That's where they would be on Lincoln. So it's like everybody knows that this area has its bad seed area.
Right.
But people aren't necessarily talking about it or going there. All they know is to stay away from it. They probably have no idea what's actually going on. They just know that you're not supposed to go there.
Yep.
So he goes to
all the straight-laced white people, like white bread
all
people.
The straight-laced white people should stay away from.
Yes.
Which is a funny thing to say because there's like two black people in this movie and they work for Jeffrey's father. One of them is blind, and they just do this cute little parlor trick about hold up, how many fingers am I holding up, and the other one pats his back with like 3. So then he says, "You're holding up 3."
I don't know how you do that.
I don't know how you do that. So, which is probably something that these guys have been doing to entertain little Jeffrey since he was probably like 5 years old.
It's like an old bit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's an old bit, but Jeffrey loves it. They love to do it for him, stuff like that. So, Lincoln is the bad area of town, which we will soon find out is where Dorothy Vallens lives.
Right.
So, and of course, she is a lounge singer, and so she's more of the seedy small town version. So he goes to visit.
He goes for a walk in the neighborhood because I think he just wanted to get out of the house, so he goes for a walk.
He went for a walk, but he does stop by.
Yeah.
Sandy's house to talk with her father.
Right.
He stops by his house, and I don't. What is his rank? Is he a Captain Williams or
he's a detective?
He's just a detective.
Yeah,
he's
Detective
a detective.
Williams. So
he's
there.
For a little bit.
And Sandy knew Jeffrey from high school.
Yeah, it's like Jeffrey was a senior when she was a freshman, kind of a thing.
Probably.
Because Sandy's a senior now,
Right.
and so he goes to leave, and then Sandy is coming home and appears in the dark. So he walks around with Sandy for a little bit,
Yep.
and Sandy has a boyfriend
Yeah.
who's kind of an a-hole.
And what is his name?
His name is Mike.
Mike.
Is
Mike the man.
Mike is the man. Yes. So we'll talk a little bit more about Mike later on, towards the end of the film. But
it's like David Lynch was beta testing Twin Peaks at this point.
This really does feel like episode 0 of
Twin Peaks. It does.
Because we have Kyle MacLachlan doing like this sleuthing detective thing.
Yep.
In a town he doesn't necessarily live in anymore.
Right. There's like the darkness going on, and there's
right,
all these weird characters, and even like MacLachlan's doing weird stuff too, like when he's they walk back, like basically Sandy agrees to show Jeffrey Dorothy Vallens' apartment.
Yes.
And points out there's like a room on the 7th floor, and it's like, okay, here's where she lives at Deep River Apartments. And on his way back, while he's talking to her about like working at the hardware store, he does this chicken walk.
Oh yes, the chicken walk.
Yes,
that is pretty adorable when he does that.
And you can almost picture Cooper doing this to impress Annie.
Yeah, that's like a bad joke that he would tell to Annie. It's so cute. So basically, what is going on is that Jeffrey is now sort of obsessed with what's going on with his ear, because he doesn't quit. Because she knows about Dorothy Vallens because she overheard her father talking about it.
Right.
Her father being a cop, she overhears a lot of things that I don't think she tells her father she overhears.
Yes.
So they
look, there's that log truck.
Yeah, they are in the diner, and as we see an outside shot of the diner, a log truck drives by.
Yep,
I don't know what else we need to.
It's
I don't know what we need to say, Charles.
No, pretty much case closed.
Yeah, we're done here. This is Twin Peaks Blue Velvet.
The prosecution rests.
Prosecution rests. Yes, exactly. There's no need for us to give you any more examples, but there's so many more.
Yes, there are.
So right, they're at the diner where he's
Arlene's Diner.
Have you ever been to Arlene? She's like, yeah, I've been to Arlene's, and you get the feeling that like Twin Peaks, there is one restaurant
one
here.
One diner.
Yeah, there's one diner. There's probably like one nice steak place.
Yep.
And one diner, and like that's it.
Now, before they go to the diner, Jeffrey picks her up at school.
And she's with her girlfriends who are like, who's that older boy?
Right. And what is he driving? A convertible.
Uh-huh.
That looks a lot like the convertible Leland was driving.
Yes. This one's red, not blue, but still.
But it still had white seats and...
Yeah, white seats, all that kind of stuff. Exactly.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yep.
And Sandy warns her girlfriends, don't tell Mike. Don't tell Mike.
Yeah. This is not what you think it is. Just don't tell Mike.
Right.
We're just friends. We're just hanging out, sort of a thing. So they go to the diner and they eat some diner food, and they talk about what is actually going on, and then they talk about he has a plan.
Yeah.
And this is where his hardware store job is going to come in real handy.
Right.
His plan is to go to her apartment and spray for insects. He's going to pretend that he is
an exterminator.
Has been hired by the landlord to spray for insects.
Right.
And then while he's there, he's going to snoop around and see what he finds. So he gets in a little, one of those
overalls.
Coveralls.
Yeah, coveralls, yeah.
And a thing. And while he's in there, two things happen. First of all, he finds a spare key to this apartment. So
he nicks that.
And then
he's like, I'm going to take this.
I'll just take this and I'll just come back later.
Yeah.
And then somebody shows up to the door. Somebody kind of weird, kind of scary.
Somebody kind of in a yellow blazer.
This is the Yellow Man.
Yep.
Who we find out later.
And apparently the Yellow Man shops at the same store that Dougie shops at.
Yes, because his suit jackets are just classic.
These blazer, this shiny yellow blazer,
Mhm.
like if it's like
So
something like out of the ABC's Wild Wild World of Sports.
ABC Wild World of Sports,
Yeah,
or like I said, remember when I said initially when I first saw Dougie, I thought he was a realtor because it looked like one of those
the
21st century,
Century 21 jackets. Yeah,
yeah, Century 21 jackets. Yeah,
yep.
exactly. That's what I thought. So, but apparently the yellow man is a cop. He's a crooked cop.
Yeah, we find that out later.
We find that out later.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and is turns out to be yeah. Guess what? It's Detective Williams' partner.
Detective Williams' partner. So screw you, Chad.
Yep,
So
Chad.
we've got a Chad. We've got a Chad here in this town.
This is probably like Chad's dad,
Oh, it's totally Chad's dad.
right?
Exactly. Exactly. And Chad is
He,
probably bitter
because his
because
dad was died.
spoiler alert, the yellow man
Yeah,
does not make it out of this
no,
movie
no,
unscathed.
nope,
Okay.
nope.
So
And we'll, yeah, we will save that because that's good too.
yeah,
Good to
we'll go
talk
ahead and
about.
say that. Yeah. So anyway,
Tease that for
he
later.
finds he finds the key and he says, "Okay, well here's what we're going to do. I got this key and you said Dorothy Vallens is a lounge singer, a
Right.
nightclub singer. So let's go to the nightclub where she performs, have a drink,
Yep.
listen to her sing, and
At the Slow Club
the slow club, yes.
because we like
And
it
it's
slow.
we like things slow, nice and slow. So
And we're gonna have what are we gonna drink?
you drink Heineken.
Heineken's, King of Beers.
And well, no,
Oh,
that's
that's
no
Budweiser, King of
Budweiser.
Beers.
Yes, she. Have you ever had a Heineken before? And she said, "Well, my dad drinks Bud," and he goes, "King of
King of
beers."
Beers. That's right. Yeah.
King of beers.
Yep.
So,
That's right.
which is kind of funny for me, having grown up in Worthington, Ohio,
Right.
which is a hop, skip, and a jump from the Anheuser-Busch plant here
The
in
brewery. Yeah.
Columbus.
Yep.
Yeah, the brewery, which, by the way, smells awesome. Just kidding, it does not. But yes, where I was growing up in Worthington, I was very close to the brewery and close to a company called Worthington Foods, which was a Seventh Day Adventist run company that made meatless meat products, vegetarian meat products.
Okay.
The combination of beer being brewed
Oh
and
my
soy
God.
being turned into chicken nuggets is a
Boy.
very, very unique combination. It's not necessarily bad, but it's not necessarily good, but it's definitely memorable. So, so they go to the Slow Club and they have some small talk, and then Dorothy Vallens, the Blue Lady,
Yep.
comes out to sing, and she's singing Blue Velvet.
Surprise.
And surprise, yeah, in a blue velvet dress. She's got a wig on,
Right.
and
This dress is important too. So,
yeah, the dress is very important. I personally think that when she wears this wig,
yeah.
I think she looks like when David Foley tries to dress up like women.
On Kids in the Hall. Yeah.
Because Kids in the Hall, because I think because
Yeah.
that wig is just so crazy big. It's crazy big
And
hair.
it's blatantly fake wig.
It's blatantly fake because
I think it more reminds me of like Whoopi Goldberg when she's like in Sister Act and she's got that fake wig on
yeah,
when she's
yeah.
performing
And
before she goes in the convent.
yes, exactly,
You know the one I'm
exactly.
talking about? Yeah.
Or even the one that she wears when she tries to sneak into the British Embassy party in Jumpin' Jack Flash. Like it's a
Right.
really overly stated huge wig.
Yeah.
She's also wearing a lot of blue eyeshadow. And this is an interesting thing. David Lynch likes blue or green eyeshadow and really red lipstick on females.
Right. Well,
That's kind of
because it's so retro. I mean, it's
right. Yeah, that's kind of a thing for him.
yeah.
So, and she's very captivating, the Blue Lady. And
But also keep in mind this was in the 80s. So that blue eyeshadow wasn't out of place for the 80s.
that blue eyeshadow was totally in style, but it is but the colored eyeshadow and the really red lipstick, that's totally a David Lynch thing.
Right,
So
right.
so they listen to her sing and then they leave after one song because they know she's working. She's at work.
Right.
So they go back to her apartment. They sneak in, they have the key. And Jeffrey.
Well, he goes in there. She
He
waits by
goes
the
in.
car.
She waits by the car, and she's going to give a signal of honking the horn if somebody comes.
Yeah, 4 times.
Unfortunately, Jeffrey drank too much Heineken.
Yep.
Had to go potty, and while he's flushing the toilet is when Sandy honks the horn.
Yeah, and apparently this must have been like a really loud flushing. Like,
yeah, it's an old apartment. Yeah,
yep,
7th floor.
Yep.
You know,
so he doesn't hear the horn go off. So
right.
all of a sudden, what he knows is he hears the front door. Dorothy's home.
Yes, and she has this amazing David Lynch retro deco looking apartment.
Yeah.
But with 80s furniture. It's I love it. I love her apartment so much. So and here's where she starts getting undressed. She takes the wig off.
Well, here's the funny part. Okay, she gets undressed. Well, she takes the wig off, gets undressed, and then after like she's naked, she puts the wig back on again.
It's because she gets the phone call saying that Frank is coming.
Oh, I see. But
she knows that Frank is coming over, which is why she puts on the blue velvet robe and why she's so freaked out.
Okay, got it.
So, yeah.
All right, I get it now.
So,
the phone rings. Jeffrey's in the closet. No metaphor. Yes. No metaphor here. He's hiding. He got trapped in the closet.
Oh God, no. That's 13 minutes of my life I'll never get back.
I was thinking the South Park episode.
I was thinking of R. Kelly.
That's what they were making fun of. Was R. Kelly
right? That's true.
Trapped in the closet.
Or when they did the Emmy thing.
Yeah.
Dad, Conan O'Brien won't come out of the closet.
Nice.
So anyway, she knows that Frank is going to come over, and we also hear on the telephone call that Frank has her child.
Yeah, she's begging for him to let her hear little Donnie.
Little Donnie, yes. Yep. And he has not just her child, but her husband Don.
Right.
Have been taken by Frank, and she's pretty much got to do whatever he says in order to try to get them back.
Right.
So she's extremely stressed about this. And Jeffrey is like, okay, something crazy is there. Something even weirder than I think is going on.
I mean, he's peeking through basically the openings between like
it's like they're like slats in the closet.
Yeah, exactly. They're basically the way the closet doors are. They have like little slits.
And we all know what those closet doors are, and there's a word for that, and I can't think of what it is. But it's the same closet doors that are in Halloween that Michael Myers just punches through, and right, and you can see the. So, so she knows that she has to be what Frank wants her to be when he gets there. So she needs her blue velvet robe, which is in the closet.
Right. Well, and Jeffrey here's Jeffrey in the closet being essentially a voyeur to all this is going on because he watched her get undressed and he's listening in on her phone conversations.
Right. And he's trying to figure out what to do. And you can tell that he's pretty distressed. And
look, there he is right now being a voyeur. Yeah.
And he wants to help her. So, but then she goes in the kitchen and he doesn't quite know what she's doing, but she knows he's there, so she goes to get a knife.
Right.
Because she knows Jeffrey's there, so he
can't see her, but she knows that he's in the closet.
She knows he's in there. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, she's like, "What are you doing? What's your name? Where are you in my apartment, Jeffrey Beaumont?"
And Chick be cray cray.
Wouldn't you be at this point if you had to deal with Frank Booth this whole time?
This is true.
So, quid pro quo.
Yeah.
He's seen her naked. She wants him to take all of his clothes off.
Quid pro quo, Clarice.
Yes. So he has to take all of his clothes off.
Yep. And
answer her questions. And so we have a little bit of an interrogation from her with Jeffrey. And
sorry.
and I think at this point, I think that her character knows.
Yep.
how intimidating this.
Dear Penthouse, you'll never believe what happened to me. I was in the closet, and the woman that I was spying on pulled a knife on me and had me take my clothes off.
Told me to take my clothes off. So, kids, if you've ever wanted to see Kyle MacLachlan's naked behind,
yes.
This is the movie for that. So
I'm
takes him
sure you
over
were not very upset by this.
No, this is a great movie.
Yep.
Oscar nominated for a reason, kids.
I'm guessing your score is going to be pretty high on this movie.
Yeah, pretty high. So she takes him over to the sofa and starts with the knife, kissing him, straddling him, and I think she knows from hanging out with Frank how disturbing this sort of sexually oriented intimidation can be. Right. So I'm not quite sure.
She kind of gets the whole power thing.
She kind of gets that whole power thing, yes, exactly. So
because Frank's done it to her, and now this is her chance to do it to somebody else.
Right. It's like she knows that she's going to basically get whatever she needs out of somebody because
right. She knows how to intimidate.
Right. She does. So so then we hear a knock on the door, and she's like, "Go back in the closet. That's Frank. I got to deal with this." So in comes Frank Booth, one of the most iconic characters in cinema history, in my opinion. This is Dennis Hopper,
right?
In full on when people think of crazy Dennis Hopper, this is kind of what they're thinking of.
Because he obviously has crazy eyes.
He's got crazy. He's a very interesting person, Dennis Hopper. He's very smart. He's very eloquent. He's very handsome, but he's crazy. I mean, he gives you that image of being completely and totally crazy,
like dangerous crazy, homicidal crazy.
Oh, like I'm gonna kill you, kind of crazy.
Not wacky crazy.
Yeah, or I've been brainwashed and don't look at the decapitated heads, kind of crazy.
Yeah,
so. He comes in and he starts intimidating her, and she's not sure whether or not to call him daddy or baby.
Yeah, this is where it gets really messed up. So he turns the light off, and this is where he says the classic line, "And now it's dark."
Now it's dark. Yeah, that is the classic line. That's where this comes from.
Which Julie Cruz ended up using in one of her songs, ironically enough. So basically, Frank is referring to her as mommy, and then he refers to himself as both the daddy and then also as the baby.
As baby, yes.
As in baby wants to F.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're gonna be saying F quite a bit.
Yeah.
In this episode.
If you want to do a drinking game, you could probably get pretty blasted listening to me.
You're going to be passed out in 10 minutes of watching this movie if you're going to use the F word this time to take a drink.
So,
yeah, exactly.
The F word drinking game.
So, and also, Frank Booth, he comes in and he demands bourbon.
Right.
All right. But that's not Frank's vice of choice.
No.
Frank's vice of choice is his own personal tank of nitrous oxide that he carries around with him.
Or whatever it is, whatever he's inhaling. We don't really get an explanation about what he's inhaling.
They never say it, but there's a story behind this, and this is the perfect time for me to tell this story. And I don't know if I've told you, Charles, but I won a prize for this knowledge.
I don't think you have. This is new to me.
I don't know if I've ever told you this story.
Let's listen together.
David Lynch, and this is a very common thing among artists.
Yeah.
People love to talk about how weird artists are just probably high all the time. Okay? And most of the time, nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, there's your Andy Warhols and things like that. But most of the time when you have people who are just weird artists, they're just odd artists. There's nothing going on behind the scenes that is terribly illicit. And David Lynch is a perfect example of this. David Lynch is a very, very straight guy.
Right.
David Lynch drinks wine and smokes cigarettes, and that's about all you got. Like, David Lynch is not a drug guy.
No.
So initially,
even though I might think he was, considering the stuff that he films, but no.
Considering the stuff that he films, but he's not particularly knowledgeable about drugs. And the perfect example of this is the background of this particular scene and this particular part of Frank Booth's character. Originally in the
Yeah.
script, this tank was helium. Okay? And
That would have been hilarious. Because
that would have been awesome. And
because yes, if anyone who knows, if you inhale helium, your voice hits a higher register.
It's a higher register. You sound like the Chipmunks.
Yeah, or Mickey Mouse or whatever, yeah.
Exactly. And so I still think that somebody needs to go through this and do a fan edit where every time Frank Booth takes a hit off of his tank, they raise the voice and it's, I'll have everything that moves. I think, so on the internet, I have challenged you. Please go ahead and do this.
That would be epic. I would love that.
So originally David Lynch had this in the script as helium. And of course, Dennis Hopper takes one look at this and goes, David, I need to talk to you for a second.
Yeah, because Dennis Hopper maybe knows one or two things about drugs.
Dennis Hopper knows a couple of things about
60s
drugs.
icon Dennis Hopper may know be a drug expert. Just saying.
Yes, Apocalypse Now, Easy Rider, Dennis Hopper has done some drugs. So anyway.
Just saying.
So he talks to David Lynch, and that's when it gets changed to being like what we all assume is nitrous.
Right.
Nitrous, of course, being what everybody did in high school as whippets. I don't know if you ever remember kids do with the balloon and the whipped cream canister.
Yep.
Yeah.
The whippets phase. Yes.
But you know what? If I would take a kid that asks me to buy them a pack of whipped cream canisters faster, and not whipped cream canisters like the canisters of like CO2 that you would make actual whipped cream with when you would have those trigger things that made out, not Ready Whip. I mean, that's like the cheater way to do it.
Right.
So, but I would take a kid that asked me to buy them that over a kid that asked me to buy them Tide Pods any day of the week.
Well, yeah, because for one thing, the Tide Pods can just kill you.
I mean, the whippets are going to make you brain dead too, but I mean, at least you're trying for a high and not an idiotic thing about the Tide Pods.
Yeah.
So kids have always been creative trying to do their stupid getting high things.
Yeah.
But Tide Pods, I think we've taken it to a new level of idiocy. So anyway, the script was changed. This is now nitrous oxide, and we have the movie we have today, and it's way less funny for it. But I was at a
It would be pretty epic,
screening.
though.
Yeah, I was at a midnight screening of Blue Velvet at the Drexel Theater here in Columbus, Ohio, on Main Street in Bexley. And they had a trivia quiz beforehand, and if you answered questions correctly, you won a prize. And one of the questions was, what was the nitrous originally supposed to be in the original script by David Lynch?
And you, of course, know this.
And I stood up and I said it was supposed to be helium, and I won the Blue Velvet movie poster.
Nice.
Which I have subsequently been able to get signed by both Brad Dourif and Dean Stockwell.
That's awesome.
So yes, that is exciting.
Cool.
Yeah. So yes, see, kids, minutia knowledge of pop culture does get you things sometimes.
Very cool.
There you go.
There you go. Life lesson from Zan.
Yes. So we have Frank Booth now, who once he does the nitrous, just gets even scarier.
Yes.
And that's the thing. I mean, somebody who carries around their own freaking tank in their coat pocket, basically. Like it's inside their coat.
It's like a little tiny canister of this stuff.
Yes.
And he has like a the kind of mask that when you're at the dentist office and they give you
the anesthetic.
Anesthetic, to knock you out.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of mask, yes.
It's the same stuff.
Yeah.
It's nitrous. It's the same stuff.
Right.
So, and he just gets scarier and scarier. So there's a scene in this where it's just basically him saying, F this, F-in, F,
right.
That's where this comes from.
One of the things he says, do it for Van Gogh.
Uh-huh.
Which is just...
The hell?
Well, no, think about it. Van Gogh had his ear cut off. Van Gogh, really. Had his ear cut off. So she's referring to do it for your husband.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because, the guy whose ear I cut off.
Yes.
That's why he says that line.
Exactly. So then he just
he threatens her with scissors.
with scissors because we already know that that's how the ear came off.
Right. So that's probably the same pair of scissors that he cut
Same pair of
her
scissors,
husband's ear off.
and we know he's about to rape her. We know
Yep.
he's raped her before.
Right.
He's very violent. It's very, very disturbing what he's doing here to her.
Yeah.
And
he's having like really weird rapid sex with her. Like
still wanting to be called baby.
Yeah.
And
is he like dry humping her here? Because I don't know if his pants are down, but
he's like dry humping her, and she has one end of the tie for her robe in her mouth, and he's got the other end in his mouth.
Yep.
And the line is, "Baby wants to F," and it's like, good God, this is creepy and really, really disturbing.
And disturbing on so many levels, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he ends up taking a strip from the robe.
Yeah.
Just to kind of go on the road with.
Yeah, it's like his little binky.
And then, and that strip shows up in various parts in this movie.
Various parts of this movie.
From this point on.
Yeah. So, and you're just sort of like,
and Jeffrey's in the closet just watching this.
He's just freaking horrified by this.
What the F and F?
What? Yes, exactly. And so and it's almost like, Jeffrey, why did you stand by and watch this? But then you're like, oh my God, I think I'd be peeing myself if I had to watch this.
How can you not watch it? You can't look away from it.
Yeah, and he wants to take care of her. He gets her to the sofa, lies her down, tries to cover her up, tries to comfort her after being violated, basically.
Yeah, he tries to be nice to her.
Mm-hmm.
But Dorothy is just, this shows how damaged now she is.
Yes.
Because the way she reacts is she starts massaging her breast,
mm-hmm.
and then she asks him if he likes how she feels, and then she demands asks him to hit her.
It just gets weirder and weirder.
Because on the way out the door, Frank gut punched her.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it did.
So apparently this is like a big turn on for her now.
And what she's doing with her breast is what women do to sort of stimulate milk production. So it just gets this whole mommy baby thing is just
This is all the stuff that she does for Frank, and now she wants to do it to Jeffrey.
It's almost like this weird Stockholm syndrome,
right?
Where she's turned on by this, but she'd rather be in control of it. Like, here, do this to me, do what I say, but still do the same kind of stuff.
Yeah. Now Jeffrey, meanwhile, is just like, oh hell no.
Jeffrey
and is just like, okay, I'm gonna get dressed now and tip out the door.
Jeffrey just pretty much knows that this is not that he is now in way over his head.
Right.
Like, extremely over his head with this. So he leaves. Sandy's probably thinking he's dead at this point.
Yeah.
Because she honked the horn like an hour ago.
It's like, what have you been doing all this time?
Yeah, and she knows, that something's happening, so...
Yeah. Oh, and on the way, while he's getting dressed, he noticed a picture underneath her couch of her husband's wife and son.
Yeah, her Donna...
her husband and her son. And there's like a marriage certificate on the back. So
yes, so we now know who Don is and who Donnie are, and so this is how we know what's going on with it, that he has her family captive.
Right.
So that whole night, Jeffrey has nightmares about Frank.
Yeah.
And
we see he dreams about him like seeing Frank, like it's almost like a slow-mo recap. So we have like slow-mo like roaring from Frank, which I think we've seen that once or twice in Twin Peaks.
We've seen that before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's like a scene with a candle being blown out, which of course we also saw in Twin Peaks.
We've also seen. Yep. And Frank is sort of the real life Bob. I mean, Frank is very much like Bob, where he's.
If Bob was in the real world, this is what Bob would be like.
If Bob was in the real world, he would be Frank Booth. He's horrible.
I agree with
that.
He's
violent. He has no remorse. He cannot feel pity. He's basically an animal.
Right.
He just screams and intimidates and makes you afraid of everything. And
he could be president of the United States.
oh, good Lord. I would take it.
Just saying.
I would take it. Anyway. So
I think it'd be pretty much an even trade at this point.
He talks to Sandy the next day and says, what happened last night was incredible. I got to tell you about it.
Right.
So they meet up again, and he's basically like, why are there people like Frank? Why is there so much evil in the world? And
which is a very okay, obviously it shows his wholesome upbringing.
Yeah.
He's trying to process this whole thing.
He just knows, he's like, why are there bad people? Why are there so many bad people that do so many bad things?
It's like a very naive, childlike view of the world.
Right. So they decide they're going to keep up with trying to figure out what's going on here, and they go back to the Slow Club.
Yep.
And this is where we see Frank and his gang of flunkies.
His crew, his running crew.
His cronies here.
Yep.
Who, include Brad Dourif and Jack Nance.
Right.
And he is, at first we see Frank Booth in the club listening to her singing Blue Velvet and crying.
Right.
And
he's clutching that velvet strip.
He's got that piece of velvet from her robe and he's smelling it like it has the gas on it or something. I don't know. It's weird.
Or her perfume, maybe. I don't know.
Something. Yeah. So he's following Frank's crew to see what kind of shenanigans they're getting up to. And what I think is interesting about this is that it sort of feels to me like exactly what you would expect a small town gang to be.
Yeah.
They're not really, this is not some sort of
small town criminal gang. Organized crime.
It's not some sort of eyes wide shut kind of secret society thing going on, anything like that. It's just a bunch of guys who are just thugs, just intimidating who they can and getting drunk and doing drugs in their apartment.
Right.
So there's not a whole heck of a lot going on, but yeah, Jeffrey follows them to what we find out is Frank Booth's apartment. So that's how we find out Frank Booth's name.
Right.
And
so yeah, and he's basically he spends the next few days kind of staking out the place.
Right, which is how we find out
he sees it. Well, go ahead.
He sees the Yellow Man again, so that's how he knows that the Yellow Man is part of this.
Right,
this
connected.
gang.
And he sees what he refers to as the well-dressed man.
Yes,
who
exactly.
Kind of, sort of looks like Dennis Hopper. Just saying.
A little bit.
Dennis Hopper in a really bad toupee wig thing and a fake mustache.
And a fake mustache. Yeah, like a really, really fake mustache.
Yeah.
So he's sort of doing his own thing, and then we have another crime here involving hookers and other seedy. It seems like all the crime happens within the seedy area of town.
Right.
Frank Booth's neighborhood, things like that, and he's assuming that Frank is involved in it all. The Yellow Man's involved in all of it, things like that. So.
Yep.
He's trying to get in deeper, and Sandy's basically saying, "What the hell is the matter with you?"
Yeah, and we should point out that, all right, after he picked up Sandy the next day, Mike saw them.
Dun 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 dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. And so yeah, that's when he goes they go back to the diner, and he's kind of updating her. They briefly kiss, although
yes,
she's a little weirded out by it because, hey, she's got a boyfriend.
That's right. She's got a boyfriend, and what's going on with this Jeffrey guy. But they obviously do like each other.
Yeah, there's obviously chemistry there.
Well, and they were boyfriend and girlfriend, thanks to this movie for a while.
Pretty much.
So,
yeah.
Laura Dern and Kyle MacLachlan.
In real life, yes.
Yes. When I talked about how David Lynch, hey guys, it's nice to be working with you guys again. We're going to do a sex scene, so body doubles, right? Yeah. It's one thing to work with your ex. It's another thing to have to do a sex scene with your ex. That would just be weird. So
slightly awkward.
Right.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey kind of is trying to befriend Dorothy because he wants to help her get her son back. And Dorothy's kind of in desperate need for somebody who will help her. but it's also this weird like sex thing between them,
Yeah.
and
Well, he tells her
so
to go, like
again,
he tells her that they should go to the police.
and she's like,
And
hell no.
she freaks out on him about it.
Yeah,
And then she keeps telling, like, her response to that is just like, "Okay, hit me."
right, because she doesn't have any. She's not. She doesn't have any sort of
That's her way of feeling love.
coping
Yeah,
at this
that's
point,
their coping
right?
mechanism is just this
And she knows.
abuse.
She knows that the yellow man is a cop, so she knows the cops aren't going to help.
Right.
And this is where we start seeing again. Dorothy Vallens reminds me a lot of Laura, where what she knows for comfort is sexual
Right.
at this point. That's where she is at that point. That's what she can control about herself. That's where she can feel that she has an upper hand. And so that's sort of a theme of someone.
Yeah, I mean there is kind of like a Bob Laura versus
Mhm,
Frank and Dorothy parallel
very
going on here.
very
Yeah.
much so. And then Jeffrey is very much a James type of a person that just wants to help but is in
Right.
way freaking over his head.
Pretty much. And then yeah, and now he does the backhand.
Hmm. And
So
she's and
because
there's
she basically gets in this girl and she's like he's all she's all frenetic and he's just trying to calm her down and just like he gets more like agitated for a moment and backhands her and then she's
mhm.
just going, "Oh yeah, that's the
She's turned on
stuff."
by it. He's like horrified at himself, but
Yeah.
he's a little turned on by it.
Right.
So,
Right.
um,
So yeah, we got a whole
it's
little
just
sadomasochism thing going.
yeah, yeah. These are people with some issues, and it's
Little S&M.
what you do in the bedroom is your business.
Yeah.
But when you are being consistently violated, I worry about you.
Slightly.
Yes, and that's the thing. So,
It's not like there's safety words involved here.
right, that's the thing. I mean, I think she's got a lot going on that she needs to deal with,
Pretty
and
much. Pretty much.
yeah, you want somebody to hit you in the bedroom, that's fine. But the problem is you've got somebody hitting you in real life, and that's not cool.
Yeah.
So, so, and the more he sees her, the more he learns about her and what's going on with Don and Donnie. They, there's she tells him about how
He kind of gets pulled into their drama.
yes, he gets pulled into this drama because she is confiding in him what's going on,
Yeah.
but because when he's leaving,
Uh-oh.
Frank is showing up.
Don't.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That.
So it's basically, hey, mommy, who's this clown?
Right.
And then we decide that we're going to take our friend for a ride.
Let's go for a joyride.
Go for a joyride.
You up for a joyride? I'm up for a joyride.
So everybody's in the car,
Yep.
and this is just a crew of weirdos. Like I said, it's Brad Dourif.
They all cram
It's
into the
Jack
car.
Nance. They're all crammed into the car.
Yeah, Jeffrey's of course sandwiched between the henchman in the back seat.
The henchmen in the back seat, they're like kind of threatening him with a knife, kind of laughing, and then this cracks me up right here.
Right.
Like
So they arrive.
this
Yeah, they arrive at Ben's place.
Ben's, because Ben is having a party.
Right.
And Ben's party is, I feel like I've been to parties like this where people
Yeah.
are like, hey, let's go to this party. And it's basically just drunk people just sitting around. It's very quiet. It's very
Right.
boring.
Well, I thought it was funny because it's like, okay, it's Ben who is this very effeminate
Yes.
and he's surrounded by all these like older, heavy-set women.
These older, pudgy ladies.
Like with with kind of like
the cat-eye glasses.
cat-eye glass. Yes, thank you. That's perfect. Yes.
They look like, these women look like they have been at this same party since like 1967.
Right.
It's so they have on like nice cocktail dresses.
And we learn nothing about these women. We don't know why they're there, who they
Don't know
are, why they're just hanging out.
Exactly. And Ben is played by Dean Stockwell,
Right.
and he's very effeminate, lipstick,
Yep.
and he's gonna get drinks for everybody because
Right.
Frank is here. Get Frank a beer,
Yes.
and so we have. It looks like Frank is enthralled by Ben, but also is very intimidating to Ben.
Right.
So it's like everybody who.
But he likes how, I mean, he refers to this constantly. He refers how suave Ben is.
Yeah, Ben is very suave.
He's so effing suave.
So effing suave, and it's just, and like I said, this party is in his like well lit apartment. They're just sitting around a coffee table. I mean, it is so funny, and you're like, what must a party at David Lynch's house be?
Oh my God!
You know?
I can't imagine.
I am guaranteeing you there are pudgy middle-aged women there too, older ladies. It is so funny. So then Ben.
Well, Frank asks Jeffrey what kind of beer he wants. This
is everybody's favorite line in this movie.
Yes.
And by everybody, I mean myself.
Yeah, well, no, me too as well. Because, well, Jeffrey replies, of course, Heineken.
Mm-hmm.
And then Frank replies to that. He says, Heineken, F that S.
F that S. Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah. And he does it just so over the top, and it's pretty hilarious.
It is so over the top, and it's so ridiculous, too, because...
Right.
Here's the... Let's talk about beer for a second, Charles.
Sure.
Pabst Blue Ribbon is quite the hipster beer currently.
Oh, is it? Is it back in fashion?
I think it's falling out a little bit, but still, Pabst Blue is kind of like a hipster beer.
Because it was kind of like the thing when you drank when you didn't have Bud around back in the 80s.
Back in the 80s, well, Pabst Blue Ribbon is what I refer to as a grandpa beer.
Okay.
It's one of those old school, been around forever breweries.
Right.
And maybe not everybody has a grandpa that drinks beer, but mine did. And it was what I also referred to as thirsty beers. Okay. Those sort of lighter beers that quench your thirst. Heineken is a good one.
Right.
Like Guinness would not be a thirsty beer. You don't drink that in the summer when you're thirsty. But,
no, because it's so thick and bitter.
Right, exactly. Right. But if you're mowing the lawn outside and you're thirsty and you come in and there's a cold Stroh's in the refrigerator, that's excellent.
Yeah.
But yeah,
see, my dad was big on Stroh's.
Oh yeah.
So we had a lot of Stroh's in the house.
Yeah, Grandpa was a Stroh's guy as well. So my grandpa was. So, and so that's kind of a memory for my mom, for her dad as well. So, but that's a thirsty beer. And it's a grandpa beer. And Pabst Blue Ribbon is also a grandpa beer. It's a smaller brewery from Wisconsin, and I think the hipsters picked up on it for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's not a mainstream brewery. It's not like a Budweiser or a Miller type of a thing.
Right.
It's big enough that it's around, but it's not so big that you're gonna look like a mainstreamer drinking your Bud Light or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not terrible as beers go. It's not that great, if you ask me.
I'm sure it's pretty watery. I can't remember having it.
It's pretty watery, and if it were me choosing a sort of small time hipster grandpa beer, I would pick Miller High Life, but that's just me.
Yeah.
But it also is like $2 a can.
So it's cheap.
When you're out and it's cheap as hell, cheap as hell. And you're seeing some of those grandpa beers coming back. There's Pabst Blue Ribbon, there's High Life. You're seeing, especially here in the Midwest, you're seeing Old Style. That's another one that was a Chicago area brewery.
Okay.
Chicago, Wisconsin. So the hipsters about 10 years ago sort of appropriated Pabst Blue Ribbon, and it got to the point where anywhere you went, any cool hipster bar you went to that wasn't a microbrewery, that didn't have craft brews, they had PBR.
Okay.
And
so even it has a cool abbreviation.
PBR, yes. And I was in a gas station, like a Speedway, the week that Dennis Hopper passed away.
Oh.
And this kid had this classic, like, big old Pabst Blue Ribbon belt buckle. and I said,
you said the line, right?
I said, I like your Dennis Hopper Memorial belt buckle. This kid had no idea what Blue Velvet even was.
Right. No clue.
No clue whatsoever. And I'm just thinking, like, if you guys are going to be drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon, you need to have seen this movie.
Show some respect, damn it.
Seriously, if you like PBR, you need to see this movie. Because, well, first of all, everybody needs to see this movie. Second of all,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
So, so that's where we get this. That's where we get this famous line.
Yep.
And
So Paul. So yeah, and this is where Paul introduces himself.
mm-hmm,
And then Frank orders Raymond to pour the beer.
Mm-hmm.
Pour the effing beer.
The effing beer.
And then what do they toast?
A little impatient.
And they have a little toast. What do we toast to? Effing.
Effing, yes. Because I'll F anything that moves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, seriously. Frank is unglued, kids.
Right.
Yeah.
So then they toast Ben.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank forces Jeffrey to toast as well.
Right.
And
which is only polite. You're in somebody else's house.
Right. Well, yeah. And then Jeffrey reluctantly, I mean, he's pretty scared out of his wits by now, I think.
I don't think he has any. He's either going to lose his ear or he's going to die. I mean,
yeah. It's not looking good for Jeffrey at this point. Let's put it that way.
That's what he's assuming at this point.
Yeah. So he toasts Ben, and then Ben punches Jeffrey in the gut.
Oh my God.
So, and then we get a musical performance.
This is my favorite scene in the movie.
This is mine as well.
For a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
First of all, I absolutely love Dean Stockwell.
Right.
Dean Stockwell, for those of you who do not know Dean Stockwell very well, he was actually a child actor.
Yes, he was.
So he has been part of the Hollywood machine pretty much his entire life. And he's been in all different kinds of things. I, of course, first really knew of him in the late 80s when I was basically living to watch Quantum Leap episodes.
Pretty much. Yeah, that was pretty much mostly where I know him from as well.
Right. That really definitely brought his career into the forefront.
As Al. Yeah.
A hologram that only Sam can see.
Yeah. Al Calavici.
Al Calavici with his 4 wives. Poor guy.
Yeah. Imagine the alimony.
Well, I mean, it's the future, so...
That's true.
Who knows? But, so, I think I love him, and I also love Roy Orbison. And the song that he's basically doing a lip sync show into a lamp.
Yeah, it's like a vintage mechanics work light that that basically you hang underneath the hood of your car as you're working on the engine.
Right, exactly. It has like that cage around it.
It's like a little hooky thing at the top.
So if it drops, it doesn't necessarily break the light bulb because it's just a regular, one of the old tungsten filament light bulbs.
Exactly.
And I think I mentioned this last time. To this day, if I see one of those, I pick it up and I sing this song.
Sure. This is because this is the scene that actually got me into Roy Orbison.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because like I got into Blue Velvet because of Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
But Blue Velvet got me into Roy Orbison.
Oh, that's cool.
And this is obviously my favorite Roy Orbison song. Which became even more significant after I started reading Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And so I fell in love with the song. I've loved it ever since.
I adore this song. It might be my favorite too. It depends on the day. It depends on the day you ask me.
Yep.
Because my answer is either going to be this song or Crying.
Right. That's my second favorite.
That one is that's amazing. What got me into Roy Orbison.
His voice is just so powerful.
I'm trying to remember what year this was. I think I was in elementary school, so this had to have been 88 or before. I think it was around the time Roy Orbison was sort of doing like a comeback, and they were, the Traveling Wilburys were coming in.
You had the Black and White Night special.
Yeah, exactly. I hadn't heard. I didn't necessarily know who Roy Orbison was. Like I knew the song "Oh Pretty Woman."
Right.
My least favorite Roy Orbison song is "Blue Bayou." I'm not a big fan of that song.
Oh, I think that one's okay.
It's one of those that's like too slow.
Yeah, it is. It is a slow one, but yeah,
it's a really slow one, but it doesn't work for me. So I knew Roy Orbison music, but I didn't necessarily know who he was. So I'm a kid, probably 11, 12 years old, something like that, and he's on Saturday Night Live.
Right.
And in the 80s, Roy Orbison always had big, thick glasses. And when
Yeah.
I say big, thick glasses, I'm not talking like Buddy Holly thick rims. I'm talking like Coke bottle glasses.
Yeah. But they were like the big glasses too. So
They
they
were
were
big.
big and thick
They were big and thick, and but in the
and
80s,
dark.
they were kind of like sunglasses.
Yeah,
They were kind of like they were dark black rims, dark sunglasses, and he had a wig, like a very obvious,
yeah,
like almost like almost bowl cut wig, but just
right.
sort of like diagonal
And
back.
it was just like, just jet black wig.
Jet black. Yeah. So here's this obviously older man
Right.
with these crazy glasses. Like, is this a blind person? Like, who is this guy?
I thought for a long time, like starting out, that I was like, well, is
Yeah.
Robertson blind, or did he lose his sight maybe as he got older, or what?
Right. So here's this guy with this wig, and the best way I can describe it is he looked like a young version of Larry Bud Melman. I mean, he from Texas,
Right.
because he was wearing a black suit
Right.
with a red shirt and a bolo tie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know who this is. Like, who is this guy? And he might have played Pretty Woman. I don't know. I don't remember, but what I remember is it was just him and the guitar playing Crying. And I'm just, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
who is this?
Yeah.
Like, and I said to my parents, I'm like, who is this weird looking guy? And they're like, oh, you know who that is? That's Roy Orbison. He does that one song. And I just was transfixed at the TV. And it was that episode of Saturday Night Live that got me into it.
Right.
But yeah, there's something about this scene that is just so cool. Because first of all, it's just so weird. I mean, you're taken to this party against your will.
Yeah.
And you get there
And you got all these like seedy characters around.
Have you ever seen the movie Amazon Women on the Moon?
Yes.
Okay. This is one of those movies that has stuff before, during, and after the credits.
Right.
And during the credits is a piece. For those of you who don't know Amazon Women on the Moon, it's a very similar movie to the Kentucky Fried Movie.
Yeah.
Where it's not a linear story. There's just little vignettes. It's basically Amazon Women on the Moon is somebody changing channels throughout. You even see like the static of changing channels. Well, at the very end, there's a bit directed by Paul Bartel and starring Carrie Fisher. And I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically about when you have a social disease. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is Carrie Fisher goes to Hollywood to try and be a star. But then, of course, she goes in with these casting directors who are like, take your clothes off kind of a thing. And then she says, I went to this one audition, but it turned out to be a wild party. And it's basically people sitting around a living room batting a balloon around. Like, seriously, just batting balloons around. And that's what this party reminds me of. I mean, it's like, you get there and you're like, what the hell is even going on? You have these people just sitting around, well-dressed, sitting around somebody's apartment.
Right.
You have this homicidal rapist freak that's got you there with his crazy buddies that are pulling knives on you any chance they get. And then you're supposed to sit down and listen to some guy in a tuxedo and lipstick lip syncing In Dreams by Roy Orbison.
Right.
And it's all, so you've got all that weirdness, that weird juxtaposition. But then you also have Dennis Hopper, who...
And everybody seems oddly cool with this. Like, this is like an everyday thing.
This is not the first time this has happened.
No. Nobody is just stunned by what's going on.
No, nobody's shocked. Like, oh, we're doing this tonight.
Yeah.
So, and Dennis Hopper goes through like every possible emotion on his face in like the course of like 18 seconds.
Right. As he's listening to the song.
He's listening to the song and he's crying and he's sad and then he gets really angry and then
it's like he gets angry at himself for being emotionally compromised by the song.
Exactly what it is. He realizes that he's letting himself go in front of these people.
Right. And he's like, okay, I have to be angry now.
So then he like stops and he's like, time to go.
Yep. Yeah, he basically stops the cassette because it was playing on a cassette player.
It's on a little cassette boombox, yeah.
Yeah. And so he takes the cassette with him because for the road trip.
Because they're going on a joyride.
Yeah, no, back to the joyride. Hey, back to the joyride. And this is where he says the classic line, let's F. I'll F anything that moves, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So what happens is Frank takes Jeffrey to a lumberyard. A lumberyard. Go figure. And, of course, he's inhaling his gas.
Yep. Oh, and by the way,
Yeah,
here's another thing that we see later on.
yeah,
I forgot about this. That there's a lot of David Lynch in this movie in very many ways.
yeah.
We're driving along and we have a film of the street and the street lines,
Of course we do.
which
Yeah.
comes up in Fire Walk
Yep.
with Me, which comes up in Lost Highway.
Yep.
That's a
Twin Peaks. Yep.
yes. All
It's
directors have some imagery.
it's his signature
Yeah, they have
imagery.
some signature imagery, and some of them copy it from other directors.
Yes.
I love you, Wes Anderson, but we all know that when you do that fast zoom, you're copying Stanley Kubrick. We all know it.
You know it. I know it. Yeah.
You know it. I know it. Dogs know it. So, same thing with
Bill Murray knows it.
Bill Murray is well aware. We have Brian De Palma and his split screen.
Right.
We have, I mean, everybody's got their thing.
Yep.
That's a very common David Lynch image. So,
Yep.
so yes, we're at the sawmill. Paul has snagged himself one of the ladies from the party.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I thought that she was Raymond's girl.
Was she Raymond's girl?
I think she's Raymond's girl.
I couldn't remember whose girl it was.
Yeah, I think she's Raymond's girl. But yeah, and then Dorothy is there.
Mm-hmm. Dorothy's still with them.
And Frank starts inhaling his gas, wanting to kind of pinch her breasts.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
he's
ow.
He's very, very terrifyingly violent and violating with her. It's really, really uncomfortable. Which
now
good,
this
good. I mean, you're supposed to really not like Frank. I mean,
right.
he's a fascinating character,
right.
And Hopper does a fabulous job, but he is terrifying.
Now Jeffrey,
he's like Bob if there was a little bit of like funny stuff with Bob, because Heineken F that S Pabst Blue Ribbon is funny. Let's admit it.
Right.
But he's supposed to be terrifying.
Yeah, and so he's not just completely dark like Bob.
No,
he's just like
evil.
dark, like Bob is more horror, and Frank is just more like cruel.
He's cruel and crazy. I mean, he's obviously nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, and what do we have here? We have we're gonna maybe cut Jeffrey up a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, first, what happens though? Frank's Jeffrey gets all mad because Frank was harassing Dorothy.
Don't touch her. Leave her alone.
And then
Dorothy.
So he clocks him one,
mm-hmm.
big time, and so he steps up to the plate. But of course, he pays for it.
Oh yeah, he does. And Frank takes Jeffrey's blood and puts it on his face.
Yep.
Which again, the red lips and
he puts it on like lipstick.
Like lipstick,
and then kisses him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, the whole red lipstick thing, it's very similar to, reminds me, and he takes that to the nth level in Wild at Heart.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're here. Yeah, we're intimidating. We're beating up Jeffrey. We're gut punching him, and Dorothy's trying to get him to stop. And
meanwhile, In Dreams is playing on the cassette player in the car,
and we're basically punching to the rhythm of that song.
And Raymond's girl has climbed up to the roof of the car and started dancing as this is going on. She's just kind of like go-go dancing to all this is going on.
So where else have we seen?
Well, it almost feels like I think Tarantino stole that for one of his movies or something.
It had to.
Because it looks very Tarantino-esque, even though Lynch did it first.
And where have we seen people up to no good out in the middle of nowhere dancing to music in the car?
Gee, I wonder.
Because Bobby killed a guy.
Bobby killed a guy, yep.
Yeah. So Jeffrey gets beaten up to the sounds of Roy Orbison, and then wakes up in the same vacant lot where he found the ear to begin with, and is just a mess. He's just a mess.
Right. Yeah.
And
it's not exactly been a good night for Jeffrey.
No. It's getting to the point where Jeffrey is way in over his head at this point.
And he's really just should feel lucky that he's alive at this point.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Because
So he's
before he knocked him unconscious, Frank threatened Jeffrey with a love letter,
uh-huh.
which is essentially a bullet from a gun.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty
And
much.
yeah,
So, and he's trying to,
that was before he caressed his lips with the blue velvet strip.
yes, that's true. That's true. So Jeffrey, of course, beaten to a pulp, decides he's going to have to talk to the cops about this.
I love that. I love it when he comes down the stairs and like his mom and Aunt Barbara are there,
Uh-huh.
and Aunt Barbara's just kind of looking at him like, like your face, and he's just
Hmm.
like, I don't want to talk about it.
He's like, just don't even.
Aunt
And
Barbara's some days, like,
yeah. So, and Aunt Barbara's looking at him like, you went to Lincoln, didn't you? You went down to Lincoln when I told you not to. So Jeffrey
he's like,
decides he's going to
Aunt
go.
Barbara, I love you, but one of these days you're gonna get it.
One of these days, you just got to know.
One of these days, Alice, bang zoom right to the moon.
So we go to the cops, and that's when we find out that the yellow man is also a police officer. So
and not just
we have no idea how deep this thing goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Tom Gordon.
Yes.
The Detective Williams' partner. So, yep.
Dun 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 dun.
You can't handle the truth.
We take orders or people die.
Yep.
So Jeffrey figures it's probably best just to come over to Detective Williams' house, because not only is he trying to say, here's what's going on, and I just got my ass beat by Frank Booth, but
you would think Jeffrey would be a little suspicious, like, well, maybe I can't trust Detective Williams.
You would think so, but I mean, apparently he can.
Unless he figures, well, Sandy would know if he's up to no good.
I think so. Yeah, I think that would be true, and I think that yeah, definitely Detective Williams is the Harry Truman of this, and and the yellow man is the Chad.
Chad.
So Chad. So.
All right. So yeah, he shows Detective Williams the photos of Frank and Gordon together, and Detective Williams warns Jeffrey, like, okay, you're going to cut this out, right?
Mm-hmm. You're going to stop doing this.
You're done. And my daughter better not be involved.
Yeah, and if you've got my daughter involved in this, I am probably going to kill you.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
then he goes back to water his yard, just like his dear old dad.
Just like his dad.
And then he sees his father in the hospital again.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then Jeffrey and Sandy go to a house party together.
Yeah, they go to a party. It's like he's doing the I'm back from college, going back to my high school friend's party.
Yep.
She's there with Jeffrey, not Mike, because, Mike's been kind of a jerk lately. What a surprise.
Yep.
His name is Mike. So, he's sort of
he's such a meathead.
Yeah, he is. He's the man. So yeah, they go to this. It's basically back to the wholesome small town.
Right.
Two clean cut kids hanging out, dancing together at a party, sort of a thing, and then their budding romance keeps going. So it's weird. Jeffrey's got this weird thing going. Like, he's going over to Dorothy Vallens' house.
He's kind of like two-timing them.
He's kind of like two-timing both of them. Yeah,
right.
He's going to Dorothy's house.
Well, then it gets caught a little bit later on.
And a little bit later on, but in a very strange way.
But here he professes his love to Sandy.
He really does like Sandy, and I think he just doesn't know.
And this is where we hear like Julie Cruz's "Mysteries of Love" playing. Of Love.
Yeah, and that's their dancing, and so they go to leave the party, and somebody starts following them.
Yep.
And at this point, we don't know who that is, so we're thinking, "Oh crap!"
It's Frank. Yeah, but
Frank caught up with them.
That's an understandable conclusion. Even Jeffrey makes that conclusion that, oh, it's got to be Frank following me.
And now Sandy's involved, and so that's creepy. But it turns out, no, it's just Mike.
Right.
And Mike is driving a very similar car.
Who's there with his friend Bobby, presumably.
Mm-hmm. And he's driving a very similar car to the car that Bobby drives.
Right.
Because Mike's car is white and Bobby's car is black. This is an older model black car. So he cuts them off. They're on just a neighborhood road. They were trying to lose them, but but Mike and his cronies cut them off. Yeah.
But I think they got to Jeffrey's house.
They did get to Jeffrey's house
because that's where
Dorothy Vallens is there completely naked. And beaten up.
Right.
She's been beaten up, and she's
Yeah.
at Jeffrey's house, which she knows where that is because
Of
when
looking at his wallet. Yeah.
she went through his wallet. Yeah,
Right.
he was in her apartment, she went through his wallet to find who he was.
But
So
but yeah, she's basically out of it at this
she's
point.
totally out of it. She's been beaten to a pulp, and she's at Jeffrey's house.
Right. And
And
Mike is just like, "Oh, is that your mother?"
that's your mom. Yeah, like Mike is just totally like trying to be there with the zingers, but he's just
Right.
no good at it.
Right.
And
But
basically,
then he feels guilty after. He's just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, man.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize. What was
I
really
didn't
going on.
realize. Yeah,
I didn't realize because then he realizes that she's
my
beaten,
bad."
and so Jeffrey puts his coat around her and tries to help her out and puts her in the car.
And
And
Sandy, meanwhile, is going, "What the hell, man?"
Jeffrey, who's this?
Yeah.
And they take her to Sandy's house, someplace safe,
Right.
where she refers to Jeffrey as her secret lover.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. She spills the beans that, oh, hey, they've been knocking boots,
Which is very upsetting to Sandy.
and
so
Sandy's just like, what?
Right, and Sandy's mom is trying to help with this situation because we do have a naked, battered lady that we have to deal with.
Right.
So she gets taken to the hospital, and
well, and then he pisses off Sandy even more by saying, "I need to go with her in the ambulance."
right, and he later he tries to do a little bit of damage control, but
and she slaps Jeffrey. Interestingly,
good for her.
But I mean, my point is like it's that violence going back on Jeffrey now a little bit.
And Jeffrey probably was into that.
Yeah, he's probably like, "Oh, okay, that's kind of a turn on." No.
Yeah, exactly. So Jeffrey decides, okay, we're done here.
Yep.
We are going to end this crap with Frank Booth because I'm sick of this.
Yeah. Well, first, he and Sandy patch things up on the phone.
Yes, they do some damage control.
Right.
And Sandy's like, yeah, this has to end. And so
right.
he's going to go confront Frank.
Yeah, and he tells Sandy, like, okay, call your father for backup.
Right.
Because I'm going over there.
I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah.
And we go to Dorothy's apartment.
Right.
And we find a couple of things. We find...
Yeah, Jeffrey walks in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And Dorothy's not there.
Nope.
But...
some dead people are.
Yeah, a couple of dead people. One of them, of course, is Dorothy's husband, Don.
Mm-hmm.
Older Donnie.
He has a missing ear and a blue velvet piece of cloth stuck in his mouth.
Yep, and he's tied up.
He's tied up. And
yep.
I'm still trying to figure out how this one works.
Yeah.
But Mr. Yellow's there also.
Yeah, the Yellow Man's there, Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
But he basically has a big chunk of his skull missing from a gunshot.
Right,
presumably.
he's been shot in the head.
But he's still standing.
Standing there.
I'm still standing after all this time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Looking like a true survivor. Anyway, so he's just kind of standing there, just sort of swaying in the breeze. But
yeah, exactly. And you keep waiting for him to fall, but he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. So.
Oh, and he also has like a police radio still stuffed in the pocket of his yellow blazer.
So, right. So I think Frank wants people to find these guys because not only is his police radio on, but he knows Jeffrey is going to come.
Well, it's essentially like a message. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's essentially a message. And this is where we find out that Frank is not kidding. I mean, he's not just crazy and talking big. He is serious. He's gonna kill you.
Yeah.
Is what's going on here.
So Gordon's radio basically relays a message that from the cops that they're ready to raid Frank's place.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so Jeffrey goes to leave, but on the way out the door or down the steps, he sees the well-dressed man.
Right. So he puts two and two together.
It's like, oh, that's just Frank in a really bad wig and mustache.
and he uses the radio to say, "No, here's where you need to be."
Right. Yeah, and I thought this was pretty clever. Yeah, he's like, yeah, Detective Williams, I'm hiding in the bedroom. Yeah, that.
Uh-huh.
And then,
Exactly.
of course, he ducks in his favorite place, the closet.
He ducks into the closet, and he takes
Going back in the closet.
He takes the yellow man's gun.
Yep.
And
waits.
And when Frank finds him,
right. Well, Frank's first. He comes in there like he shoots up the place.
Mm-hmm.
I think what it is, he knocks over the yellow man.
Finally.
Yeah, and then he realizes Jeffrey's in the closet.
Right.
So
he's looking for Jeffrey, and he is gonna kill Jeffrey.
Right.
I mean,
but this is kind of a thrill. So he starts inhaling.
Mm-hmm. He's got his mask. He's taken the wig off. He's taken the mustache off.
Yep.
So the rest of the audience who hasn't quite caught up yet knows. Oh, so that's also Frank.
Right.
And
Frank, of course, does not realize that Jeffrey has the gun.
No, he does not know that. He's assuming Jeffrey is still just as scared and out of his league as he's been the rest of the times he's seen Jeffrey. Understandably. So he opens the closet door, sees Jeffrey. Jeffrey's got the gun right on him and shoots him right between the eyes.
Bang. Great shot.
Which, frankly...
Yes.
Every movie needs to know that that's the only way I'm going to trust it.
You're a real bastard, Frank, but I'm glad you're dead.
But I'm glad you're dead. Yeah. So, and then of course, Detective Williams shows up.
With Sandy.
And the rest of the cavalry.
Yeah, and that's pretty much wraps things up with that.
And then of course, we have a nice little montage at the end of Jeffrey on a lawn chair.
Yeah. Now he just wakes up possibly from a dream.
Who knows?
Was he dreaming? Who knows?
I don't know. Who knows?
So he wakes up in a lawn chair and he sees a robin in a tree.
Yeah, where have we seen that before?
Well, see, hey, wasn't Sandy talking about robins earlier and talking about how they, I don't know, they would pierce the darkness and all that?
Yep.
So, and Jeffrey's dad's out of the hospital, and they're just kind of like the two families are like hanging out together for the afternoon.
Right, because the kids are going out now, so we're going to have to...
We're going to be the future in-laws, so we better get to know each other.
Yeah, we're going to have to get together and meet each other. Yeah. So we have... so everything in Jeffrey's world has gone right again.
Yep. They watch a robin eat a bug.
Uh-huh.
And Aunt Barbara's just like, that's so gross.
Yes, Aunt Barbara is... she's a little bit sheltered, I think. But that's like the worst thing Aunt Barbara sees all day.
Yeah, pretty much. And then we see a glimpse of Dorothy reunited with her son.
Yes, we go back to the very beginning of the movie where we have the flowers and the fire truck driving by, and then we see a little boy wearing the same birthday hat that Jeffrey was playing with in Dorothy's apartment, and then Dorothy's there with her son. So unfortunately, she's now a widow.
Yep.
But she has her little boy back.
Right.
So,
and hopefully she got some therapy.
Oh my God, I hope so. This is like literally the happiest ending of a David Lynch movie I've ever seen.
Right. And it brings things all the way full circle because we go right back to the, like you said, seeing the fire truck and everything from the beginning of the film. Yeah. And the blue velvet curtains close the movie.
And we're closing the movie with the I Can See Blue Velvet in My Dreams.
Right.
Isabella Rossellini singing that.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, name me a movie that David Lynch has done with a happier ending than this.
Dune?
Yeah, I guess. But it's like...
He is the Kwisatz Haderach.
He is, but he has to marry, what's her name instead of Chani?
Irulan, yeah.
Irulan, that's right. I can never think of her name.
Yeah.
So he has to deal with all that kind of crap. So it's like...
But
this is almost...
But he's basically the Messiah. He's like, oh, okay, I'm the man now.
Okay, I'm gonna put this a different way.
Yeah.
Name me a happier ending that David Lynch wrote.
That's better.
Yeah.
And
that's not even a good caveat because we also have like the Straight Story. I mean, that's probably the happiest movie he's ever done.
Yeah.
But even in he didn't write The Elephant Man, but that one ends really badly too. That one's really sad. But this is your happy ending here. This is where we completely diverge.
This is pretty much as happy as it gets.
This is as happy as it gets. And yeah, like I said, I mean, she's a widow, but
Yep.
Frank is also dead, so he's not going to come back. And her son is fine, and he's very long. He looks like he's about 3 or 4, so he's probably not really going to remember being kidnapped by weirdos. And I'll bet you, yeah, and because he's been taken care of. He's at Ben's house. That's one thing we forgot to mention when they go to Ben's house.
Right.
Is that's where the kid is. And that's probably what those ladies are doing.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably what they were doing. They're like babysitting him. Yeah.
They're probably taking care of little
Donnie. Yep, that's probably what's going on. All right. So as I wait for Zan to return,
so
there we go. Are you coming back?
Like a robot. So.
All right.
That's weird.
I don't know why it's all glitchy, but Skype shakes fist.
We have been having here in Columbus today. We've had some pretty serious windstorms today.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if internet is spotty at best today.
Or Skype's just going, you guys have been talking 2 hours. Get off.
You guys need to get on with it. So, interesting story about David Lynch. So anyway, yes, this is Blue Velvet, and I don't think even when you're watching it, you get that feel that you get with Twin Peaks or the small town things like that. Now, an interesting story about David Lynch, and this is, you can really tell that his childhood influences are in this movie, because there was a time in David Lynch's childhood, growing up in Missoula, Montana, that he and his brother were just outside late at night, just kind of hanging out outside. And they saw a naked woman come walking down the street, just crying in a daze. Just a naked woman just crying.
As you do. As things happen.
Doesn't that happen to everybody in their childhood?
Of course.
So basically...
I can't even stop counting the amount of times that happened to me. So yeah.
I know, right? It was like Naked Lady Central in my front yard late at night when I was growing up. So that is exactly what happens with Dorothy Vallens coming to Jeffrey's house, just crying and naked, walking down the street at night. So,
as a writer, I'm always told, you write what you know, and this is obviously, that event obviously affected Lynch's outlook, I think, on the world.
Yeah, exactly. And David Lynch is quoting as saying that this is a film that deals with things that are hidden within a small town and things that are hidden within people. And so that, and you see a lot of that in Twin Peaks as well, that there's a lot of things, people are like, this is the homecoming queen. You don't know Laura Palmer. Yeah. And, I think we're going to both find out a lot of things about Laura Palmer. And there are things hidden within the town that we don't know about necessarily, like that Benjamin Horn.
Right.
And One-Eye Jacks and the cocaine trade, and then things that are hidden within people, like what is within Laura, what is within Josie, all those kinds of things. That same concept is a running theme between this movie and with Twin Peaks as well.
Right. It just seems that Lynch has a great fondness for kind of turning over the rocks in these wholesome small towns.
Right.
And just kind of seeing what's underneath.
Right, and
kind of exposing, like, okay, everything isn't as perfect and as wholesome as you would think it was.
Right.
So.
Right. Exactly, and that's every small town. Every small town has that. Every small town has that.
I grew up in a small town, so yep.
Every small town has that missing kid that nobody wants to talk about. Every small town has the one house that gets busted, and then there's like 800 pounds of cocaine in it. I mean, that this kind of stuff happens.
Right.
And even if the town, we've all been through small towns in the United States. They all look the same. They all have the same feel to them, and they all have the same image they want to project. But there's some weirdness in the underbelly.
Yeah, and Lynch growing up in the 50s, which pretty much exemplified that.
Absolutely.
I'm sure shaped his whole outlook on things.
Well, and I've always been really intrigued by that narrative that what you see is not what you get.
Right.
And I like that element of storytelling quite a bit, which is part of why I like this movie so much.
Which I think is why
And
also Lynch has this fascination for like 50s music and or early 60s.
right,
That whole Eisenhower era period.
that pre-Vietnam
Yes.
America
Right.
and
When
that post Korea, pre-Vietnam America
right.
that was very, Leave It to Beaver, Donna Reed,
Exactly.
very, very, very white bread, clean cut kind of a thing. But that, as we all know, that's not the case.
No.
I mean, just for at the minimal example, the 1950s gave us Betty Page.
Right.
So there's stuff going on that you don't see, but that people want you to think you're not doing, but they're doing.
Right.
And so, yeah, I find that sort of era in United States culture history fascinating.
The reefer madness.
Yeah, exactly. And the juvenile delinquent,
Yeah.
and how comic books are going to ruin lives of children.
Oh
and
yeah,
things
yeah.
like that.
With Frederick Wortham,
Oh God.
that bonehead.
Yes, the
Yes.
lessons in morality by total
Yes.
weirdos.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, but so I definitely recommend any Twin Peaks fans who have not seen this movie that they watch this movie,
This is
because
obviously If you're a Twin Peaks fan, this is in your wheelhouse.
this is definitely in your wheelhouse, and you'll be watching it going, "Hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, and I had forgotten a lot of that stuff until I was recently watched this movie at the same time that um the Return was airing, and I was just sort of like, oh my god.
Right.
I had completely forgotten about a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. I definitely. I mean, I felt that way rewatching this. That
Hmm.
just like it reminded me. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, all these connections
Yeah.
to the original Twin Peaks series and the Return. And I thought
Right.
it just really sticks out. So, all right, do you have a rating for this movie?
9 out of 10 cans of Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Nice, nice. We're totally in sync. I give it 9 out of 10 severed ears.
Ooh, that's a good one too.
I
I
was
like
going to go
that.
with that, or if you stole mine, I was going to go with vintage mechanic work lights.
Oh, I like that one too. I like that one too. Yeah. This one loses a point for me for being a little bit difficult to watch sometimes because it is so
Right,
sexually violent, but I think that is necessary to tell the story. I mean, there's very few things
right,
that can make somebody hate me make me hate somebody as much as them being a sexual violent predator.
right.
So I think it's good storytelling to get you to really not be able to stand
And
the
there's a
same
lot of things
character.
that, I mean, you've got voyeurism, sadomasochism, just drug abuse. So lots of things that make this movie very compelling.
Hmm.
But yeah, maybe some uncomfortable for some people. But that's kind of the
Yes.
point, I think, to be
Um,
uncomfortable.
right. Right. And I
Yeah.
think and I don't think there's anything wrong with having bad people do bad things in
No.
storytelling. I,
Yeah.
I think if we, um, and this has been a big discussion in the comic book world recently, that just because you show somebody doing something bad doesn't mean you're condoning that bad behavior. It means you're
No.
saying this is why they're evil.
Right. And we
So,
have an ending in this story that the bad guy gets his.
mm-hmm.
He gets his comeuppance. He gets
Yes,
killed. The hero saves the day. In this case, Jeffrey. So, good triumphs over evil. And we have the message of hope with the Robins.
with the Robins and with Dorothy getting her child back, and so this
Right,
child could grow up to be anything he wants to now because he can grow up
right,
now.
right.
So
They were rescued. Both Dorothy and her son were rescued from this dark influence.
yes, exactly.
So, so there you go. Good things. Good message. All right.
Yes, the
Okay.
happiest ending David Lynch has ever written.
Exactly. All right. So you said you had something from earlier that you wanted to mention in the podcast.
Yes, I do. Our last podcast, we talked about Eraserhead.
Yes.
And one of the things that we were a little unsure of was special thanks was given to Sissy Spacek in this movie.
Yeah, what's up with that?
What is up with that? Well,
what's up with that? What's up with that?
Ooh-wee.
What's up with that?
Spacek showing up in the credits. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Very nice.
So, my friend Mike wrote me a letter.
Another Mike?
Another Mike. Now, this Mike is the man. He's actually a really good guy, and so he listens to the podcast.
Does he have a best friend, Bob?
No, he does. He does not, as far as I know.
Okay, just checking.
He should though. It'd be nice if he did, and they were both really nice guys, and then they could break that cycle.
Does he have just one arm?
No, he's got both arms.
Oh.
He's got both arms. So he's not David Lynch Mike. He's real world Mike.
How weird.
I know, right? It's
2 arms. I can't deal with that.
Name is Mike and has 2 arms. Whatever.
Get out. All right.
So apparently, first of all, Sissy Spacek is married to Jack Fisk, who was David Lynch's childhood friend and who was the man of the planet in Eraserhead.
Right.
So, and they worked. He's an art director, and he worked on Badlands with Sissy Spacek in 1973, and that's how they met. So they were married. And so they were a couple when this movie was being made. And as we've talked about before, that there were several months in between them being able to do filming of this movie, of Eraserhead. And during some of that time, Sissy Spacek came to visit her husband on the set of Eraserhead. And so not only did she hold the slate between takes a few times.
Really?
She had also been in a couple of movies that, like I said, she was in Badlands, but then she also did this little movie you might have seen called Carrie.
Yes.
In 1976, which again, Jack Fisk was the art director on. So
tiny film.
Just a little film about, telekinesis. Nothing big.
Yeah, no big deal.
But according to what Mike is telling me here, some of that Carrie money was invested into Eraserhead to make sure it got completed on time. Because without some of that, we would have had more months of nothing trying to earn funds for that.
Right.
So not only was she sort of an impromptu production assistant, she also put up some money for Eraserhead. So that's where
she's the money.
And she was some money, and so that's where a lot of the special thanks come to. But also, she is married to one of David Lynch's childhood friends. So either way,
got it.
She gets a special thanks.
That's cool.
She also, she was also in The Straight Story, so they have been obviously.
I didn't realize she was in that. I haven't seen that movie.
They've been friends for a long time. So, but that's what was going on in Eraserhead, is that she was there visiting her husband and helped put some money up to make sure that movie got finished.
All right, that's good to know. I did not know that. Know that.
Thank you, Mike, so much, because
thanks,
I read this letter and I was like, oh my God, that makes okay, this makes sense now. So, I had no idea about that, and I wouldn't have necessarily put that together if I looked up her bio, because I wouldn't have necessarily thought of Jack Fisk when I was doing that. But Mike also, and Charles, you're going to be the only one that can see me.
Mystery solved.
Mike also sent me some gifts.
Ooh, what did he send?
This. He sent me some stickers, one of them being this.
Nice.
This, for those of you out in podcast land, is a sticker that's the owl.
Right.
The Owl Cave. Owl.
Yep.
And then he also sent me this sticker, which I have to admit is my favorite.
Oh, the Let's Rock. Nice.
It's a sticker that's Let's Rock in the red cursive, like on the. That's
so it looks like something you just put on your windshield.
It is exactly something that's going to be going on my windshield.
Hopefully not your front windshield, but because it'd be tough to drive. But
no, it'll be on the back. But it's written in that cursive that the lipstick Let's Rock is written on Agent Chet Desmond's car. So.
And I still want to know who put the Let's Rock on there.
Nobody knows.
I want to know. I want to know this.
I assume it was the Chow font.
Yeah.
But
this is the kind of stuff that I would like. If I had the opportunity, I would love to write this stuff. Like just this little this little backstory about what went on here.
there's a thing called fan fiction.
I know that, but I want to get paid.
Oh, okay.
That's the weird part.
That's the real trick, isn't it?
The professional, yes.
Exactly.
It's easy to write it, but not so easy to get paid for it. So, yeah.
That's true, yes. Writing, you could do that tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Now, we also got some Twitter feedback from at Leftist Kitty Cat on the Twitter machine, who goes by the handle Seb. So, hi, Seb. And Seb dropped us a line, said a couple lines. I'll just combine them here really quick because they're very short. He said, I really enjoy your podcast, guys. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
When I heard Mystery Men quotes, I knew you guys were my kind of podcast.
Excellent. See, thank you very much, Seb, for understanding the crossover in cultural brainwaves.
Right.
I appreciate you.
Right.
I appreciate that you appreciate that.
Yep. So see, never underestimate the power of Mystery Men quotes.
When I think of the men I could have married, no one would blame you. Still could. Do you want to go back in the bag?
I am the shoveler. I shovel well. I shovel very well.
Baby, you shovel better than anybody. Please don't correct me. It sickens me. Anyway, so yes, Mystery Men. Thank you for appreciating the digression.
All right. And thanks for the Twitter love, Seb. We really appreciate it. Could always use a nice, kind word now and again. So thanks so much for that.
Or constructive criticism. Either way, we'll take it.
Yeah, we're good. We're flexible. All right. So next time on Ghostwood, what are we going to talk about? Are we going to talk about Wild at Heart or something else?
That is a good question. I think you and I should discuss that and then surprise everybody.
Okay. I do have an suggestion, maybe.
If you have a suggestion, go for it.
Well, I was thinking that if you don't want to do Wild at Heart, we could do maybe... there was an episode of Psych called...
The Twin Peaks episode of Psych, the Dual Spires episode?
Dual Spires. You want to do that?
Sure, yeah, let's do that.
All right, because it's been a while since we reviewed a TV episode, so our choices would be either, okay, we go back and finish reviewing the original series since we reviewed the pilot.
Well, I think we should eventually get there. Maybe do some commentary, some running commentary. But I do think we can do more.
But we can
Roots
also
of Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Parodies of, and that we can even do that. We can even do that next week. We can talk about Dual Spires and any other Twin Peaks parodies that happen around the same time.
Yeah, that'd be good.
We can talk about Saturday Night Live.
We can talk about Saturday Night Live too while we're at it, because that's not enough for a full thing by itself.
No, it's not. Neither is the. Do you remember the TV show Anything But Love?
Yes.
With Jamie Lee Curtis and Richard Lewis.
Yes.
They did a Twin Peaks parody also.
Right.
It was about 5 minutes, but it was a good one.
Hopefully, it's online on YouTube. I haven't watched that forever.
Well, I can give you the the main points of it. So yeah, let's do that. Let's do some Twin Peaks homages and parodies next week.
Okay.
Next time.
Because a lot of Twin Peaks actors, if you haven't seen the Psych episode Dual Spires, there's a ton of Twin Peaks actors in this, and lots of allusions to Twin Peaks. So
Dual Spires.
Because I mean, you got people like Cheryl Lee, Dana Ashbrook, Sherilyn Fenn, Michael Onkeen is in it.
Michael Onkeen and what's her name? I can't think of Lana.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Lana Milford, and I can't think of the actress's name. I'm sorry, I can't think of her name.
Oh yeah, I know. That's gonna bug me now. I'm gonna have to look that up on IMDb or something.
Yes.
All right, but okay. So next time we'll cover Dual Spires and the Saturday Night Live parody, and maybe the Anything But Love
and
parody.
whatever else we find.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yep.
Whatever else.
Maybe The Simpsons, because The Simpsons did a very quick parody of that.
They did do a fantastic parody. Oh, we went so long in this episode without referencing The Simpsons.
Yep. We can't just.
And can you believe that you're the one that brought it up?
Exactly.
Oh, Bizarro Day. Today's opposite day.
Nobody was seeing that coming. So
Nobody saw that one coming. No.
So if you
But
had
it
that in
was
the
a
betting,
fantastic.
if you had that in the betting pool, that I'm the one that makes the only Simpsons reference in the episode.
Give that man the $5,000.
Exactly. All right. So Zan, in the meantime, while we gear up for that in a couple weeks, where can they find you on the interwebs?
I am on the Instagram and the Twitter
Yes.
as Udinax19.
All right.
And then, of course, if you want to find me on any of the Ghostwood pages on Twitter or Facebook, I'm there as well.
Yes. You post some really cool stuff from time to time.
I do my best.
You do perfectly.
I should post those. Anybody who's following the, sorry for the swear here, but that's what this is called. If anybody's following the Twin Peaks shitposting group through all of its incarnations recently through Garfield and whatever it is today, there's been some fun stuff on there that I should probably post.
Yeah,
specific
you
Space Ghost things we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
All right. As for me, at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter machine, at Charles Skaggs on the Instagram, Google Plus for all you crazy kids in the Google Plus, Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs, and my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee and hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Ghostwood, or comic book, sci-fi news of my other podcasts, the Fandom Zone podcast they do with Karen Lindsay, where we talk about comic book television shows, including Legion, which if you're a Twin Peaks fan, like Zan, you should be watching Legion because it's awesome. And
this is the second time today someone's told me I should be watching Legion.
You should be watching Legion. It's weirdness incarnate.
Okay.
Definitely check it out. And it's such a great production. That first season, Aubrey Plaza, Dan Stevens, it's perfection.
Nice.
Highly recommend. Gene Smart, all kinds of great actors in that.
Oh, I love Gene Smart.
Yep. So,
I think she's great.
So yeah, you should be watching Legion. At least watch the first episode and see what you think.
You don't get to come on my boat then. I don't know if you've ever seen. Have you ever seen Garden State?
No, I know of it. That's the one with
Zach Braff.
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman and Zach Braff.
Yeah,
and,
I haven't watched it.
She plays the mother of his best friend, and they're both going to get in on this Ponzi scheme and become rich. And he's like, "I'm not going to do this, Mom." She's like, "All right, fine. You don't get to come on my boat then." But yeah, Gene Smart's in that. She's wonderful, as usual. She's always good.
Yeah, she's good. I liked her since Designing Women.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Back in the day. All right. But she's great on Legion. And let's see, what else? Of course, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast they do with Jesse Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about all things Doctor Who. And Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, they also do with Jesse, where we discuss news and all kinds of comic book related material relating to the upcoming DC Universe series Titans. So
cool.
Please check those out. I would definitely appreciate it if you do. And,
they're very good. I'm subscribed.
All right.
And if you're thinking, wow, it sounds like you guys do some fun podcasts.
Yes.
What else is there that I can listen to?
Well, hey,
you should go check out the Southgate Media Group Patreon. See what else there is to offer.
Right.
And, you know, give a recurring donation of $1 a month or something, $2 a month. You know, because this ain't free, kids.
Nope.
We've got a guy, Rob, that does all the legwork for us.
He does all the heavy lifting with all the posting and getting us on the various platforms.
Yep.
And so, any help you can to help us keep the lights on, that'd be appreciated. I'm sure Rob would definitely appreciate it. And
Rob would appreciate it. You'll get updates based on your various levels. You'll get some other stuff. You'll get some cool things. So.
And hey, maybe Zane will get talked into doing a Simpsons podcast. So
Zan does not need to have her arm twisted with that. That's, if you want to hear me go on and on about this, if there's anybody out there going, she knows a lot about The Simpsons, I wonder if she can talk about that in a more appropriate venue.
Right.
I can do that for you.
I think you'd be perfect at it.
I think you should do it with me.
I might could be. I only have 4 podcasts. What's one more, right?
What's one more?
What's one more? Yeah.
You could be the Millhouse to my Bart.
Everything's coming up, Charles.
Everything's coming up, Millhouse.
right.
What Lisa's problem? Millhouse mother say Millhouse handsome. Probably my favorite Millhouse line ever after coming up Millhouse.
Even though I feel more like the Ralph.
Oh, you don't eat paste. Come on.
Me fell English? That's impossible. That's my all-time favorite Simpsons quote.
That's a pretty good one. Yeah.
All right. So, everybody, thank you so much for listening. And, again, thanks for supporting Southgate Media Group and my other podcasts. And we will see you next time for Dual Spires and Saturday Night Live and all kinds of other stuff.
Dual Spires and other various homages.
Exactly. So come on back, and we'll see you right here next time on Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. Bye, everybody.